Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. We have our top 25 rankings show to get to today. We have Zach Guggenheim with us as always, and special guest Juck on Bucks. Before we get started, I do have to announce that Zach has been suspended from the show, 2 shows,
What?
and he actually got to choose the 2 shows that he was
Oh,
suspended.
yeah.
I said, Zach, this isn't gonna fly. Okay. I was like, I think it's a little weary. You're gonna choose your own shows to be suspended from. However, you just went ahead and chose Mother's Day and the following Sunday. So, Zach, we'll just have to see what the podcast overlords have to say about you choosing your own suspensions. Would you like to defend yourself to the crowd?
I legitimately was shocked, and then I had forgotten. I told you that I needed those 2 Sundays off, and then I was like, once again, JR pulls a brilliant joke out of what's going on with our friends in Ann Arbor. So that was well done. That was well done. I did choose those days. Yes. I didn't realize they were being considered a suspension, but
well, they are now because Sherrone Moore got suspended. And it fits the joke. So
okay,
that fits the joke. One man who never suspends himself from his show is Juck on Bucks, who runs a fantastic Ohio State show and also has a Juck on college football channel. Both of those are linked in the description if you would like to find Juck's work. Juck, how we doing today? You want to tell people about your show?
You linked my stuff in the description, JR. Oh, that's really nice of you, buddy. That's on the ball. I can't say I'm quite on the ball when I have guests like coming over to my show, but that's really fantastic. I'm Juck. I talk about the Buckeyes every morning at Juck on Bucks. Try to keep up as much as I can on the national college football scene, but the Buckeye fans are very demanding, my man. They're very demanding. They want their Buckeye content, so I give it to them every morning at Juck on Bucks.
There you go. And over on Juck on college football, how often are you posting over there?
It depends. Right now, not a lot. But when the action picks up, if there's ever a big story, I'm always over there, usually talking some crap. But during the season, I post a lot more over there.
Very good. Very good. Got some Buckeye fans with us already. Doug Shepard says, good evening, good people. And look at that. Doug is sharing it on Facebook. I presume he means my book of faces as it starts. Thank you so much for that, Doug. We appreciate you doing that. We got Billy Tuesday here with us. Howdy, gents. Hello, Billy Tuesday. And Brian Myers with his Go Bucks there. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, guys, I think... Well, do we want to comment on the Sherrone Moore stuff at all? I mean, Zach, it happened right after we got done with our, the next morning, Monday morning after Sunday and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know how Ward Manuel still has a job. I mean, this is like my biggest takeaway from all of it. How, the dude has managed to piss off the NCAA, his own fan base. Heck, his own president left. I know the president didn't leave because of Ward Manuel, but still, it fits my narrative. Let me go with it. Zach, do you have any thoughts on the Sherrone Moore suspension before we get into the show?
I mean, I'm still waiting for the final resolution before I can just shout from the rooftops, the NCAA stinks again. But where there's smoke, there's fire. We've been saying it. That's what I'll continue to say. The question is what's actually going to happen. So, and I think Brian Myers in the chat says it exactly. It's too little, too late. Unless if they impose bowl bans or championship or playoff bans, which I can't imagine they'll do. So I just feel like it's dumb. Vacating wins is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Juck, but the way I look at it, it's not very smart to piss off the overlords by telling them you didn't do anything wrong just to come back, months to a year later and say, oh, yep, we did do something wrong. Please accept our minimal offering of 2-game suspension, which we get to choose because our coach did coach at one of the games for one of the he didn't coach there, played for one of the teams that we're going to have coming up. I know you got a lot of thoughts on it, Juck, but if you want to summarize them real quick.
Man, it's just so silly. Honestly, there's nothing that's going to come out of this that's going to make me happy, but them self-imposing this right here is, publicly being taken as an admission of guilt, at least on some level, which kind of makes me happy. Finally, we're seeing a little culpability even though it's ridiculous that they've chosen their games. And, you say all they want about this being sentimental for Sherrone Moore, the Oklahoma game. Like, get out of here, man. You want your coach on the sideline so you don't get embarrassed. And so there's not a blowout when the whole second half is nothing but Sherrone Moore not being on the sideline talk. This thing, Ward Manuel, to your point, him hiring Sherrone Moore is going to drag this on for not just 25, but 26 as well. This is going to keep on going. I'm so sick of it. I wanted it to be over a long time ago. I'm sure we all did. But, on and on we go with this thing. I just can't wait for it to be over.
Maybe Sherrone Moore will have his own documentary of it, and we can get what was the guy's name? The Buckeye mystery guy with like the black hood on.
Brohio?
Brohio, that's right.
Yeah.
I almost died laughing when Kent came on as Bro Casual, and he was doing that. That was awesome. All right, Trojan Fight is here. He says, "What's up, guys? This topic, I came to see the Zack USC love." Oh, don't worry, we'll get to the USC love, Trojan Fight. Don't worry. First, we have to talk about the team that you love to trash on the most, and we're not necessarily going to trash on them, but we are going to talk about what's going on with Jared Curtis commits to Georgia over Oregon. Juck, I'm actually going to throw this one to you first because you're the big recruiting guy, and I know you were probably following this one very closely, as you do have some Duck fans that listen to you as well. I mean, this was really interesting to me. I thought Oregon had a really good chance here. I thought Oregon had a really good chance with Caden Dixon-Wyatt, and then when I saw the tweet by Jeremiah Smith with the shush emoji, I thought, well, that one's over. And it's Brian Hartline. If Jeremiah Smith and Brian Hartline are confident, I'm gonna be confident. I feel like that's a pretty good thing to live on. But what's your thoughts here on Oregon missing out on star wide receiver, now Jared Curtis, who commits back to Georgia? Because wasn't he committed to them before and then he decommitted, then he commits again? What's your thoughts here, Jack?
For one, I just want to say how much I respect this kid, because he decommitted from Georgia because he did not want to take officials elsewhere while he was committed. It made him feel gross. And he ends up committing to Georgia, which is like, man, this dude gets it. By the way, crazy talent, clear number one quarterback in this class. And the Ducks were pretty confident. They've been in a bit of a rut. They've missed out on quite a few lately. It's obviously huge for Georgia. Those of us who were rooting for Ryan Montgomery to maybe make some waves down there, kind of a little bit of a bummer there. But no, I think it's really big time for them. To get a quarterback of this pedigree in the system. He's going to be a dude. There's no doubt about it. As for Oregon, they'll be fine. Like, they're going to get Ryder Lyons, who will be on his mission, and then he'll be basically a class of 27 kid for them. And he's damn near just as good. And I'm sure they can supplement, in the portal like they always do. They'll be just fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. I read an article by Big Ten Ted, who actually works for Scoop Duck over there now. I just saw that a few weeks ago, which is really, really interesting. Yeah, I don't know if he's an insider, but he's a staff member over at Scoop Duck now, which is. I
saw that he's
awesome.
Doing a Duck podcast. Is he a Duck fan? I never knew that before. Is he a Duck
Badger.
guy?
He's a Badger fan. I think
he's a Badger doing a Duck podcast.
I think he just had really good engagement from Duck fans, and so he had an opportunity to work at On3 for Scoop Duck, so I think he just took the job, and now he's covering the team for him. So
that's great.
Pretty cool stuff. Listen, if I was a Wisconsin fan, I would not want to be following the team. I'd want to be covering a different team right now too, because it does not look good for Luke Fickell. Much to my demise.
I got
Zach,
a question for you guys.
Okay,
sorry, I don't want to get you off topic, but since you brought up the Wisconsin, do you think that we could see potentially, because the schedule is so difficult this year, that like we saw last year with Florida, where my contention was when that schedule came out and everybody's like, Billy's going to get fired. Like, that schedule was so tough that people were going to cut him a little extra break if they just looked good. I think maybe we could see that. I'm hoping so, because I'm rooting for Fick, that we could see them not win a lot of games again, but play better and see a marked improvement. And maybe that buys him some more time.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah. I think the key is, do they show marked improvement? And yeah, the schedule's brutal. We've talked about that a lot.
It's crazy.
I think the problem, though, and I'm sure you would, I think we'd all agree with this. there's been a lot of hype the first 2 years with Fickle of getting things right, and it has just not looked good. And not just on the field, but it has felt like some personnel decisions haven't been great. Development hasn't been great. His decisions with quarterbacks and bringing them in from the portal hasn't been great. There just haven't been a lot of hits. So I don't know. There's not a lot to be excited about in Madison right now, and I think that's my concern. Is even with what just happened, like they brought in some guys that people were excited about, and then they got back in the transfer portal, and some of their insiders are saying, well, he wasn't the right fit, or it wasn't this. It's like, well, then why'd you bring him in the first place? So I think there's just a lot of confusion that I have that doesn't give me a lot of hope. But I'm with you. I want Fickle to do well.
Yeah, I think after the extension happened was when you and I came on here, Zach, and we were like, well, we ate our words. Like, if he wins 5 games, he's not getting fired. You don't extend the guy just to fire him, the next season later. Of course, that extension was kind of an annual thing that they do for their coaches. So it's going to look really bad if they didn't extend him a year. And if you look at the stuff on the extension, not a whole lot of stuff really improved. He just got another year. So, but I do think listening to some of the Badger podcasts that I listen to and talking to a few people that I know that follow the program very closely, there's a lot of buzz for the culture up there right now. There's a lot of buzz for the competitive spirit of everybody up there. So from everything that's typically not the stuff you hear right before a season where a coach gets fired, right? Typically you hear a lot more of kind of, well, the coach can't figure this out. He can't do this. He can't do that. I mean, a lot of talk about Ryan Day before last year, right? Like, oh, you got questions about this, questions about that. But you don't really get a lot of that stuff. Now, maybe the Badger media is just different than that kind of stuff, but the people I talk to are not necessarily media. They're kind of plugged in fans a little bit, and they seem like overall they're willing to give him next year, because the schedule is so hard, at least go into the season after that, and maybe like a mid-season firing the season after that if things don't improve and get better. That's just my take on it, though. So all right. One more thing about the Jared Curtis stuff. Juck, Ryder Lyons got predicted to go to Oregon. I almost said USC. It was not USC. And that was somebody that Ohio State was going after. That was somebody that USC was going after quite big. So not as good of news for maybe some of our USC people following the show. Do you tend to believe that's the case? What are your thoughts on Ryder Lyons in Oregon?
Yeah, I do think he'll end up at Oregon. Looked like it looked like USC for a minute there, but now I do think it's going to be Oregon, and SC looking good with Longstreet. I mean, they're just fine too. Any more like, and Lincoln's always kind of like to do an every other year star quarterback type of deal. So again, Lyons really isn't a class of 26. He's a class of 27 because he's taking that retreat. So, or that I don't know what do you call
mission.
that? I don't know what the mission.
Mission.
He's taking a mission. Mm-hmm. He's doing a thing. He's doing a thing for a year. He's going to go do the thing. So he's basically not till 27, which gives USC a whole nother year to go get another stud should they miss out on him.
Yeah.
But he's dynamic, man. I was so mad. He was the one guy in the top 10 that Ohio State took the longest to offer. They didn't offer him until the very end, and I don't understand why. Chip ended up offering him, and then Chip, skedaddled out right after that. We never really had a shot. We weren't in on it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the confusing part of it too, with him gonna miss a year and then come in the next year and stuff like that. So that's hard to plan for. But
yeah,
we'll see how it works out. All right, one other thing I want to bring up, and then we'll get to our top 25. Zach, I'll kick this one to you first, since I let Juck talk so much on the recruiting stuff. The Sports Business Journal reported that the Big Ten last year made $928 million in total revenue and distributed about $63.2 million to the 12 longest standing schools. Obviously, there's some other schools like Oregon and Washington that are not making the full amount. However, they are making a very good chunk of change compared to some other schools out there, and it's going to pay off for them in the long run, as that eventually does retire. From last year, or from 2023 to 2024, that's an increase of 5.5 4.5% in total revenue and 4.5% in school payouts. Zach, the kicker, that is more money than the SEC made last year by about $80 million for the entire school. So the Big Ten, rich, good news, bad news. What are you thinking, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to factor in that there's only 16 schools in the SEC and 18 in the Big Ten. So I would need to do math, but either way, it's what we've been saying. The Big Ten is probably the most financially stable conference, and it will be for the foreseeable future because of their contracts with these TV markets and the way that they've kind of cornered the market from east to west. So I think that's good. Now the question is, will these schools that are getting this money, will they use it? That's what we talked about pre-show. Are schools going to use this money to improve their programs in a way where they become more and more capable of winning on the recruiting trail and on the football field, improving their facilities, improving their coaching staffs, and obviously continuing to foster NIL as long as it's still the wild, wild west? And I think that's the big question, because I still think there are teams and programs in our footprint. They are not using the money to the best of their ability. And so that's the big question is, will teams like Minnesota, like Iowa, like I'm trying to think, like I think Northwestern, which I think they're starting to use it well too, but like they need to continue to do so. And otherwise it's still going to be a very top heavy conference. You're going to see Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan be at the top of the conference if these other teams don't spend like those other teams are.
Juck, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've long been irritated as an Ohio State fan at so many of the schools in the Big Ten that did not invest in football, didn't seem to care in football, took the money, from the Big Ten and put it in other things. I think what we've seen here recently in the last few years is so many teams stepping it up and now investing in football, Indiana and Illinois and Northwestern with the new stadium and the new facilities, Illinois, the new facilities, Nebraska, they always spent. But, like we're seeing all these people now put the money where we want it to go, which makes me happy when we talk about the Big Ten making more money. As long as we can see more of that, I'm good with it. But, so many of them have just been leeches off the backs of those of us who've carried the conference forever, that I've hated the Big Ten for a very long time. Now I'm coming around. Now that I'm seeing this.
Now Juck's on a Big Ten show talking about, how much more money the Big Ten's making than the SEC. So we're slowly converting Juck over here at the Big Ten Huddle. It might not happen this season, but maybe next season we'll get there. So, hey, we're going to take a commercial break really fast. Then we'll get into the top 25 to 11 of our top 25. And then in our final segment, we'll get to our top 10s and go on talking about that stuff. So we will be right back after this. Have you ever wanted to watch all 22 film, that film the coaches watch? Well, now you can. Introducing the Coaches Film Room. Over at Minutes to Sports, former college coach Zach Smith breaks down film of the most relevant teams in college football with a bit of a Big Ten lead. It's not free, so you'll need to sign up for the Colonel tier, which is $25 a month, but I can attest to you that it is far more worth it than that. With about 4 to 8 games per week, this is worth so much more money, not to mention Zach's analysis, making you a smarter football fan. Go check it out. The links are in the description, minutestosports.com. You won't be sorry. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we appreciate you being here. Do us a favor, like the video really fast. If you're listening on podcast, give us a 5-star rating, 5-star review. Really helps out the podcast. And listen, if we don't have good Big Ten podcasts out there, the SEC is going to dominate the podcast realm, and it's going to be your fault because you didn't give us a 5-star rating. So do it. 5-star rating, like, subscribe. I know a lot of you guys have kids with iPads. Okay, we are family friendly here. Subscribe on your daughter's iPad. My daughter's subscribed. Okay, so just go ahead, subscribe. Buy one for your dog too while you're at it. Maybe multiple dogs. Chuck, I know you got a couple dogs. Do your dogs have iPads they can subscribe with?
We've got 5 dogs. Yeah, they can subscribe. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
There's got to be some rule against dogs having YouTube accounts. I'm just saying.
No, I think there's an app coming. I think they made YouTube for kids. There's YouTube for dogs coming. It's on its way. I can feel it. So.
Oh gosh, I'll share one anecdote. There was a kennel. We're starting to figure out where to board our dog as our dog sitter's getting that she's graduating, and they're like, "Oh, we have like doggy like screen time that you can pay for," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm not paying for that." Anyway, carry on.
That's hilarious. I just now realized here on the screen the white background of my of the teams over there is not up, so the lettering and wording and stuff like that doesn't look very good. I'll set that up here in just a second after I kick it over to Zach and Juck to talk about their rankings. Mine really fast before we get into it. I'll list it off for the YouTube viewers, and then I'll let Zach and Juck briefly give theirs. At number 25, starting from there on down, I have Nebraska, Florida, Iowa State, SMU, Kansas State, Tennessee, Miami, USC, Michigan, Washington, Arizona State, South Carolina, BYU, Indiana, Texas Tech. It aligns with my power rankings. We did power rankings the other day. That cluster kind of there in the middle of USC, Michigan, Washington. Those three teams, I think they're going to be pretty good. We'll see. But at the same time, some of them, they also have young quarterbacks that need to obviously get ingratiated into the season and everything. So I didn't want to rank them too high. However, those are teams that I feel pretty good about. And then Nebraska was kind of my wild card team I threw on there at the end that I'm going to mention in the top 25, but I'm not holding my breath for them to have a top 25 season. We'll see what happens. Zach, you go ahead. You can list yours off and then give a quick, brief talk about yours from 25 to 11.
Yeah. Well, I'll already say I feel like I made a mistake because I totally forgot about Texas Tech. And I see both of you having them at 11. I'm like, totally forgot them in my Big 12 cluster. So yeah, I would probably move a bunch of teams down to have Texas Tech in there. That's my bad. But that being said, I'll start from 25 up. Nebraska, I want to believe that they are on the rise. I have them at 25 mostly just because I'm like, all right, you're here until you get knocked out, or if you prove otherwise, then you'll rise. I do think they can be a top 25 team this year. Tennessee is a team I didn't know what to do with because on one hand, I'm like, I think they have talent. On the other hand, I'm like, you're bringing in Joey Aguilar. He's not going to have a spring to get right. So I didn't really know what to do with him with the Vols. So I kind of have him at the tail end. I'd probably have them a little higher if Nico is still there. Then Oklahoma. Again, I feel like I think there's potential with that team, but I'm just not sold on Brent Venables as the head coach there. Washington, I didn't have them as high as you, JR, but I do think there is a lot of potential for them to explode this year. And I think all of their either all or most of their tough games are at home. Florida and Ole Miss, I feel like there are things with both those teams that I like, things with both those teams that I don't like, but I have them in that 20-21 spot. USC, I'm excited about. Like, I think things are trending up for them. I'm excited about what they could be offensively with Maeva coming back, excited about where they could be defensively with another year in that system. Miami, I think they have talent, but I'm concerned about Carson Beck, if I'm honest. I don't think he's as good as people would say he is. I don't think he's worth the $4.3 million or whatever Miami's paying him. And then I have a big cluster of Big 12 teams, BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State. And I didn't really know how to separate them. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to put a big cluster there. And I think South Carolina is kind of in that mix as well. And then Indiana and Michigan, I think a lot of people will argue that Michigan shouldn't be this high. And I think in other seasons, I would agree. I just think their defense, I just have a tough time putting teams above them because I think their defense is going to be really, really good this year. And then Indiana, I think, as I thought about it more, I'm like, do I think Indiana's better than BYU? Yeah. Do I think Indiana's better than Iowa State? Yeah. Do I think they're better than like these other teams? I'm like, yeah, I do. So I have them up at 12.
All right, good stuff. Juck, I know you went kind of in depth on yours, but if you just kind of briefly mention yours and maybe focus a little bit more on the Big Ten teams, go for it.
Yeah, so I got A&M, big believer in Mike Elko, that they got things right there. I think they obviously they ended on a bad note last year. They're going to pick up how they started last season. Marcel Reed in year 2. I'm a believer. That's a team. Indiana, boy, I got a lot of angry Indiana fans, and it's pretty amazing that Indiana fans are angry that they're in a top 25. Like, know your role and shut your mouth, man. You're Indiana, dude. Ease the hell up here. Like, you've literally been the doormat of the conference for 100 years. You have one good season, get rocked at the end. The only 2 good teams you played, you got destroyed by, and all of a sudden you feel entitled to be in a top 10. You're in the ranking. You should be happy. Again, you're Indiana. Michigan. Yeah, I don't know how anybody's any higher than this on them. Zach, I think you're nuts. Anyway, we'll keep moving. Louisville, look, big believer in Brom. Dude always gets it done. You got to put a couple of teams from the ACC in there, and that's why they're there. They're consistent. We can usually count on them. K-State, Avery Johnson was very inconsistent last year. I think that this year we're going to see him turn it around a little bit. They're always, a consistent good one. I'm going to ride with them in the Big 12 quite a bit this year. Auburn, I hate Hugh Freeze. I think he's just a terrible human being. I do think he's a good coach. Obviously, we're putting a little faith here that Jackson Arnold is going to have some improvement. But I do like a lot of the pieces that they have brought in. And I think they were better than their record last year. Nebraska, I got faith in Matt Rule year 3, man. Like, I'm a big believer in this dude. And you got to take a couple swings here, and that's one of my swings. I'm a believer. I think Rayola is really talented. They got receivers. Mm-hmm. I'm not, crazy about the defense. I like Holgo being there, a little longer now and a little more of that together. So I'm a believer in them. We'll see what happens. Oklahoma, obviously, they got the terrible schedule draw, but, things looking good. I think Mateer is just – I think he's, going to be in the Heisman talk this year, potentially. He's really that type of dude to me. Miami, I like the offensive line. I like a lot of the pieces on defense. Again, this is more of an ACC thing. It's going to be SMU. It's going to be Miami, and we're going to have Louisville down there at the bottom, but Clemson leading the way. USC is one that I felt like I was a lot higher than most people on, but looks like you guys are pretty much right there with me. All the 1-score games last year, and I couldn't stand listening to Lincoln sit there after 1 loss, then 2 loss, then 3 loss, then 4 losses, every single press conference talking about we're just a couple plays away from being undefeated. Like, dude, shut up. But it was true. He wasn't lying. They were just a couple plays from being undefeated. And, we see a couple different, the ball bounce a few different ways. And, a little bit more time under D'Anton Lynn, who I'm a big believer in. Lincoln is a good coach, man. Again, another guy that I just can't stand, but really good football coach. I do believe in him as a coach, despite, the little downturn we've seen here recently. SMU returns our man, Kevin Jennings. And I think people are sleeping again on them. They're going to be good. Brett Lashley, one of my favorite coaches, as is Kenny Dillingham, who I've got their number 14 with Arizona State, bringing back Sam Levitt. The Gators, man, I know it feels ridiculous to have them this high, especially for me, who literally, called for Bonehead Billy to be fired, like, I don't know, first 7 weeks of the season. I just think DJ Lagway is just so ridiculous, man. Like, to me, hands down, the Heisman front runner, the best quarterback in college football. But Lenore Sellers isn't far off for me. Like, I really just love I was just watching highlights of him the other day. He's just sensational. We got Beamer in year 5 already. Things just feel like they're gelling in the right way. They did lose a couple of good pieces on defense, but I just kind of am starting to have faith. We've seen their recruiting pick up. They're getting guys in the transfer portal. They're investing a ton of money. And then we got Texas Tech. Look, when you bring in this many top tier guys, it's a crapshoot of is it going to gel or not, right? We just don't know. But the talent that they did bring in, I kind of believe in it. It's a pretty damn good looking roster at this point. So I went ahead and put them up there at 11. If you spend that much money, you deserve to get in the Juck on Bucks top 25.
Yeah, I got them up there too. I think they spent a lot of money and they added some really nice pieces. It's just going to be, can Joey Maguire put it all together? They spent money before and it didn't go super well for them, but I think, you live and learn, you get better. And Joey Maguire, he was like one of the best high school coaches in the state of Texas, I believe, not long before he got to Texas Tech. Yeah, great coach there. So I will comment really fast on Florida and South Carolina, just why I'm not as high on them, and then we can get us into probably USC and some other Big Ten teams. Florida, for me, I actually am really concerned about DJ Lagway not really having a spring. So I don't know if Florida will finish as low as 24. I think they can finish in the top 20, obviously, maybe even top 15, but I think they're going to start out of in the beginning of the season a little bit slower just because DJ Lagway didn't have that springtime with his, I believe he had surgery, or no, he had to rest, so he didn't have surgery, something like that. But as far as I'm concerned, just a little bit lower on them because of the way they'll start. And then also, I don't know if I've heard other people talk about this very much. Maybe I'm just wrong, but I'm concerned about South Carolina not having very many wide receivers. Obviously not that concerned. I still have them top 15, but I do think that's an area of the South Carolina team where they really need to improve is their wide receiver core. And as we've seen in the Big Ten, you can have a really good quarterback, but if you don't have good wide receivers to go with them, that's a problem there. So, all right, I do want to point out USC because, like you said, Juck, all three of us are kind of higher on them than most other people. Just speaking for me, and then I'll let you guys go with it. I think at the end of the day, Chad Bowden is making a huge difference for USC. Yeah. I know he's only the general manager, but it said a lot to me that he wanted to get rid of the strength and conditioning coach and move on from him and go after somebody else. He went after the Indiana one. I think that's a lot of good stuff for Indiana. They were able to keep him and hang on to him. But as far as I'm concerned, I haven't really seen it on the field with USC so much yet. However, it is something I believe in with this team, more so in Chad Bowden, and then also reflecting that like Lincoln Riley has taken teams to the playoffs before. He has a good defensive coordinator now. Things should be better, right, Juck? Things should be better, right?
Absolutely. No, look, I get it. Like the dude's easy to hate on, but people pretend like he's just always been some kind of bum. Like there's a reason he's there making a lot of money. If you'll remember Oklahoma, I think a lot of people want to forget that. Yeah, the dude is, he's a dude. I thought when he went to Indiana that it was going to be unbelievable. When he went to USC, that it was going to be like, okay, we're getting back to the Pete Carroll ages because he's just that kind of guy. Obviously, it hasn't gone that way yet, but wow, the Chad man, he is turning things around real quick. And these general managers, this day and age are playing a huge role at some places. He's certainly at the top of the list. Yeah. What they've got going on there with this class is something to behold. More top 100 players. I think I ran down the list the other day than like 6 of the blue bloods combined right now in this class.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. It is nuts.
It's absolutely incredible. Zach, what are your thoughts on Indiana? Or not Indiana, USC?
You're like, I want to get there. Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys said, I think is what I'm thinking too. It's not just for this year, but it is moving forward. And I think if they have success, if they end up being a top 20 or top 15 team, maybe a fringe playoff dark horse, that recruiting will then continue to generate. And I think the fun thing to think about is now you have 2 and possibly even 3 powers in the West. Because I think Washington, they're not recruiting nearly as well. But I do think there's a lot of reason to be excited about Washington too. But that gets really exciting because then you have USC, Washington, Oregon all out there making some noise.
For sure. For sure. Well, I guess we should probably get to it because the Indiana fans have found Juck's ranking of Indiana, and apparently some of them think Juck may not have seen the Indiana-Nebraska game. I promise you, Juck did see the game. I'll vouch for Juck on this one. However, I will say, even as somebody who has Indiana as high as 12th, there is a little bit of a faith ranking here, right? I mean, we've seen coaches have really good seasons before and then come back and flame out. Now, I've been on record saying I don't think that's the case with Kirk Cinetti. I don't think Kirk Cinetti is a Mel Tucker, and it's evident in my ranking that I don't think he's that way. However, somebody like Juck having Indiana as far down as 24th, I don't blame him very much because at the end of the day, shut up, Penn State guy. At the end of the day, I do think that this is a team that does need to continue to prove themselves kind of year in and year out. So, Juck, you want to take the floor on Indiana really fast and just maybe, I don't know if you know much about the roster and stuff. Well, I'm sure you do because you did the top 25, but just some of your thoughts on what they've assembled this year coming off of last year and stuff like that.
My thoughts are you had a lot of good players make their bones on a lot of subpar competition. I think that Cignetti is a really good coach. You bring in 31 guys year one. Okay, things gelled. That went good. You're out of JMU dudes this year, but you brought in another 23. We're banking a lot on faith here to think that those 31 and those 23 with the existing Indiana dudes are all going to mesh in one big happy family. And let's keep in mind, they really did get mollywopped by the only two good teams they played. I don't know why everybody's forgetting this. I don't understand. Like, there is a huge gap still between Indiana talent and the talent of the top tier of the Big Ten. And again, I get that you guys like Indiana. I know you do. And I think maybe you're being a little clouded by this. But I also can't stand Indiana because of the big mouth Cignetti and these Indiana fans who have popped out chirping all of a sudden. So I'm probably skewed on the other direction. So we can probably meet somewhere in the middle and say they're probably, honestly, maybe 16th or so.
I think it's fair.
Really fast. $5 contribution from Girth Brooks. He just wants me to say his name. All right, go ahead, Zach. I always call him Brooks because I think it's just an interesting name to have. So I just call him Brooks, but that's fine. I'll say it for him if he pays me $5. Go ahead.
There you go. Sup, Girth. I will say this to start off. Indiana fans, you can't say that I hate you today. I'm just saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So thank you, Juck. But Juck, I think you make a lot of good points, and I think that the idea of a faith ranking is valid for both you and I, JR, because I think we are saying we believe in what Cignetti is doing, and we think if he continues to progress, we think he could get to 9-3 or 10-2 again. And I think that justifies a top 15 ranking. Now, he's got to prove it, and he's got a tougher schedule this year than last year. And I think that is something that is going to be a problem. And I think if you're an Indiana fan and you are chirping at Juck for putting you 24th, you need to understand Juck might absolutely be right, and you actually might end the season unranked. And that's, like, you've got a tough game against Illinois. You've got a tough game at Iowa, even though none of us have Iowa in the top 25. It's still going to be tough at Kinnick. You still got to go to Oregon. You still got to play at Penn State. You still got to play Wisconsin at home. Like, all of those rosters might be better than yours. That's not to say that you don't have good players. That's not to say that you don't have guys that could be All-Americans. Like, they have All-Americans returning, but you have to remember that some of those All-Americans were made because you are playing against weaker competition a year ago, and that inflated stats. So you have to take that into consideration. And so I think you could see them in the top 15, borderline, maybe top 10. I think you could also see them unranked by the end of the year.
Yeah,
I'll just add, JR. I mean, like to your point, like talking about faith, like, a lot of this is, you know what I mean? Like Nebraska, they're the team I'm kind of faith, like we have these. This is part of a top 25. So, that's totally justifiable to have those hunches. And, that's what we do a lot of this on,
For sure. For sure. And a lot of this depends on Fernando Mendoza to me. I like Aiden Fisher at linebacker. I think Mikel Kamara being moved to the more of a outside linebacker edge type of position is going to be really interesting for him. He had, I think, just as many. No, he didn't have just as many. He had a close to, if not just as many sacks as Mateo Uyunglele last year. So, granted, not as good a competition, but still, that was something that he did. And D'Angelo Pons there on the outside. People forget he really did. He did pretty well against Jeremiah Smith in that game. Now Ohio State, had some help from their special teams and stuff like that, so they didn't have to go to Jeremiah Smith like they did against Tennessee. Or I say they have to. They didn't go to Jeremiah Smith like they did against Tennessee and some of those other teams. And then on the other side of the ball, you have Elijah Surratt. So we'll see what these guys are. To me, a lot of it is just, can you produce against a much tougher, much heavier schedule? I believe Indiana can, but I've been proven wrong before, and we'll see if it happens. Juck, last one I'll ask you on. This isn't a Big Ten team, but BYU, me and Zach, we declared our love for the Mormons when we had our Is Utah Coming to the Big Ten episode, and we talked about how we would rather have the Mormons in BYU than Utah, and that made Utah fans very mad. However, we stood on it. What are your thoughts on BYU here, Juck? We got them up to 13th, and you don't have them ranked.
When we look at that conference, I think there's just like two games, one way or the other, can flip for anybody so easily. I do like them as a team. I like quite a few of those teams. At the end of the day, you just kind of got to pick who you like a little more. Ultimately, the Big 12 teams that I picked, I just like them a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
That's fair.
Terry, I do have to point this out, man. We got beat by 10.
Yeah, seriously, dude. I was just about to type to him, like, come on, man, get out of here with this shit. I'm sorry.
You guys got pretty mollywop for the entire game, and then kind of came back there in the end. Listen, I defend Indiana because I like Kirk Cinetti, and I think they're a better program than some people give them credit for. But I got to point that one out there, Terry.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna hit a commercial break. We'll come back. We'll talk about our top 10s right after this. Homefield is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel with a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design. Homefield brings you gear that is comfortable and stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Homefield digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create one-of-a-kind apparel. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description. Back here,
I am ordering a new shirt tonight from Homefield, and I'm using the code for JR.
Hey, that's a true man of the show right there. Juck
There you go.
Super chat last episode, using the link this episode. We're just gonna have to put a Juck's face on the wall or something like that at some point. All-star member here at the Big Ten Huddle. Appreciate it, Juck.
Don't let the truth ruin a good narrative. Oh, I can't even take it.
Oh, Terry.
We love you,
never
Terry.
Change, Terry. We never change. All right. I will be honest. I did use that narrative on Twitter once or twice against the SECs. So I can't go against you for it, Terry. Okay.
Yeah. Can I just comment on one thing? And I think it might be helpful, even like Philip says Indiana is a fringe top 25 team, which I think there's some truth potentially there. I would make the claim that I think a lot of teams from 11 to 25, I think they're very incomplete teams, and there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And there's probably a number of teams. I mean, you and I were both low on Iowa, which, by the way, that was a fun day, Monday, when I had basically all of Iowa Nation come against me on Twitter. That was entertaining. But there are Iowa fans that think they should be ranked. There are, Minnesota fans that think they should be ranked, and all this other stuff. Just prove it on the field. It is what it is. Prove it on the field.
And I hear their arguments too. They're good arguments.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa did bring in a really good quarterback.
I love him.
Yeah, he's really good. Just gonna have to see how he ingratiates with the team and if he's got the wide receivers on the outside to help him. All right, then I turn into a Iowa segment. We're in the top 10 now. We're actually pretty close on all these guys. I don't know how much we're gonna actually have.
This is amazing, isn't it? I'm looking at this like, wow.
It's pretty incredible. All of us have Illinois at 8. All of us have Georgia at 7th. Me and Zach have Oregon at 6. Juck has Oregon just one spot higher at 5. I don't think there's really anything you can argue with one or two spots. Me and Juck both have Clemson at 4. Zach has them right on the outside of the top 4 at 5th. We have me and Zach have LSU at 10th, Alabama at 9th. Juck has those flipped. Alabama at 10th, LSU at 9th, and then the top 3 is jumbled up for all of us, but we all have the same top 3. Mine is Ohio State 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3. Juck has Penn State 1, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, and then Zach has Penn State 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3rd. Juck, I'll give you the floor on your top 10 and talking about it.
Right on. So Alabama, I mean, man, this was a tough one. It's just hard to get a beat on what they're going to be. Ultimately, they've got a lot of talent still. This is a very, very talented roster still, which was somewhat surprising when I really went down. Like, man, they still are loaded on the 2 deep there. It kind of, how much faith do you have in Kalen DeBoer to turn this thing around? I was encouraged to hear that he's kind of holding them. It seemed like he went so the opposite way in year 1 from the Saban hardline regime and kind of relaxed the atmosphere, that he kind of decided maybe he went a little too far and pulled it back in heading into this year, which was, good to hear if you're an Alabama fan, I think. I really, obviously we don't know what Simpson's going to be like, we'll see, but just a lot of talent. And I think they're right. I think they're accurately rated here between all of our 9s and 10s. LSU, what a great portal class, man. I mean, they really spent some serious money. We all talked about all the Texas defensive tackles that they added. Like LSU, they added 5 or 6 defensive linemen as well, offensive linemen. I think they had like 17 total dudes, and only 2 of them were not 4-star portal guys. So they spent some serious money. You got Nussmeier, I think will be a little bit better this year. We got year 2 in Brady's defense, and it's just a team that I think has got a real shot to compete for a national championship this year. Illinois, you got all the returning production. I think Burt is notoriously underrated, and he always has been, and now he just keeps getting better with age. The confidence and the swagger he's got gives me confidence in his squad. It just feels like they're ready to really make some noise this year. Georgia, obviously they got the skill. They got a great coaching staff. They brought in a couple of really good receivers. And that was a big bugaboo. I don't think Gunnar Stockton is a very good quarterback, so I think you kind of lose some at quarterback despite Carson Beck's bad year. But you gain at receivers. Do love them bringing in what's his name, the Illinois running back. That was a really good addition. Kind of sucks that Illinois lost him. There we go. There's my Big Ten. There's my Big Ten homerism coming out a little bit there. I wanted them to be able to keep McCray there, but Georgia is just, I don't think there's not someone as a fan of someone in my top 3 that I fear, really being a juggernaut in any way, shape, or form. Notre Dame, man, I think what Marcus Freeman's put together is just incredibly impressive. And to me, when you look at the teams that are ruling college football right now, the teams that can compete year in and year out for a national championship, it's Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Georgia, and I am just like one season away from having Notre Dame in that bucket of 5 teams that I can just chalk every year and say, yep, they're going to compete for a national championship this year. So, that's how much respect I got for them. They got a lot coming back. Jeremiah Love, to me, is the best back in the country. And, I just dig Freeman that much. The schedule's pretty so-so again, so they should be right there at the end. The Ducks, I think a lot of people sleeping on the Ducks. I don't know. They lost a lot. Yeah. The portal additions they made in the fall were excellent. And then they didn't do anything in the spring at all. They weren't in on any of the big time DTs. And they obviously got the offensive line loaded in the fall. I think they brought in Emmanuel Pridge and Isaiah World, the number 1 and number 2 offensive tackles. So they had the interior guys. So the O-line set. Will Stein, I think, is the number 1 offensive coordinator in the country. I just I think what we got here is a consistent machine at Oregon, and they're definitely in the contention for me to compete for this championship this year. As is Clemson, who I noticed that there's recently a lot of people coming up on them. We saw, I think, when the initial ratings came out, or the lines came out, they were like number 8 in for odds-on favorite to win a national championship, which to me was insane. With the number 1 returning production, the receivers a year older and they're better. Klubnik looking as good as he did last year. Bringing in Tom Allen, like, this is a force. This might look similar to an old school powerhouse Dabo team. And, look out, man. I think that this is the real deal. Ohio State, obviously, the huge question that you're always going to have when you're starting a new quarterback. But, I think that, again, we can call this a faith base, right? I think that he's going to be very solid with all the weapons he's got and the coaching that he's got. The defensive line, very concerning. Outside of that, I think Ohio State has maybe 3 units that I would consider the best in the country. And that's a whole lot of units, man. They got dudes everywhere. They're loaded, as is Texas. And I do consider myself a believer in Arch Manning. A lot of people can't stand that. For some reason, he's a very controversial guy. You can say it about Julian Saying, and people have an opinion on it, but when you say it about Arch, man, it gets a visceral reaction. But I do believe in the Arch. We've seen the Arch we've seen him make really high-level throws on the field in football games, regardless of competition. We've seen him run the ball in a very elite way, regardless of competition. Like, we've seen him do it in college football games. I believe they've groomed him the proper way. He's got his head on his shoulders straight, and he's a dude. And then Penn State, my number 1 team. I think that they were this close to having, the best team last year. Real close. Obviously, we know where they had issues. They addressed them, and they addressed them in a pretty big way. And Drew Aller, now with real wide receivers, I've always been a believer in him as a really highly talented quarterback. And I think that this is the year that we see him finally break through as the guy I always thought he was going to be, which is a college superstar. And I think he's going to look like that this year. Obviously, the defense is always sound. You bring in Knowles. His system takes 3 years to really take hold. But that's when you're taking over a defense that needs an overhaul. Penn State doesn't need an overhaul. He's just the boss. Man, I can't stand Jim Knowles anymore, by the way. Just throw that in there. But Penn State, my number 1 team, and James Franklin, he beats who he's supposed to beat, loses who he's supposed to lose to. That's his bag. But I think he's got the best team, which means I think Penn State is the number 1 team and will win the national championship this year.
Well, yeah, if you got the best team and you beat who you're supposed to beat, that should end up with you having the national champions at the end of the year. So that's some pretty sound logic. I can't argue with it too much there, Juck. Zach, go ahead and hit yours briefly.
Yeah. So first, I want to make a concession here. So we did our power rankings on Sunday. I had Illinois above Oregon. I do not have Illinois above Oregon in these rankings. JR texted me this morning being like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I said, yes, because power rankings are where I think they are right now. Rankings for me is projecting to the future. And so I think Illinois right now, they have the most consistency, I think they have the most continuity out of, I think, almost any team in the country. So, and I think they're going to be really good. But I think Oregon is going to get better and better with a lot of what Juck was just saying. Their talent, the way they've solidified their offensive line. I think Dante Moore is going to it might take a lump or two early. They play Penn State early in the season in Happy Valley. I think that's going to be a loss for the Ducks. But ultimately, I think they're going to get things going, and I think they are going to be a playoff team this year. So that's why I have Illinois slightly below Oregon in this list. I have LSU at 10, not 9, because I just don't trust Brian Kelly. I get Kalen DeBoer underachieved a year ago. But if I'm going to – Kalen DeBoer's gotten to a national championship game. Brian Kelly, I guess he did with Notre Dame, but I still don't trust Brian Kelly. So that's how I my separator for them.
It was vacated, Zach. It was the national championship.
You're
appearance was
right.
vacated.
I don't have to give
So,
them credit for that anymore.
yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree. Like LSU, Alabama, Georgia, they all have so much talent. I think LSU has the quarterback, but I have coaching concerns. I think or LSU, sorry. Alabama, I have a little bit of less coaching concerns, but still have the concerns. Super talented. And then Georgia, I really agree with Juck. I don't think Stockton's the guy, but man, the way they stacked year after year talent, I think they have to be in their top in the top 10 somewhere. So that kind of details my 6 through 10. Clemson, I think offensively, I'm really excited about where they're going to be there. Cade Klubnik, the receivers, I think that's going to be an explosive offense. I'm still a little concerned about the defense. You know, I just, after seeing them a year ago, even in the ACC, seeing them against some of the SEC teams that they played, I'm like, I don't know if they fixed it, but I do think they are going to be a really good team and a potential national championship contender. I think Notre Dame, I think it says a lot that 2 of their starting offensive linemen a year ago transferred out, because I think they are that confident in their offensive line. I'm not concerned about them switching quarterbacks or bringing in a new quarterback. I think they're going to have that figured out. I'm excited about where Freeman's got them on defense. And then I think the top 3, I think unanimously, obviously with us, but I think across the board, most people have some combination of Penn State, Ohio State, Texas. And so I have them. I think the main separator for me currently is Penn State's continuity, as well as that they've just added some really key pieces. Campbell being the most recent as of an hour and a half ago. So they're building depth. They've got the receivers. I think Drew Aller continues to improve. I like the offensive line. They're good at every level of defense. I just think they're the most complete team. And I think with Ohio State and Texas, they are uber talented, but they do have to replace a lot. And I think there are, as Juck mentioned, Ohio State has real concerns on the defensive line. That's not something you want to bring in. That's not something you want to have when you're playing both Texas and Penn State, but especially with Penn State with their running game. I have Ohio State slightly above Texas, just because I think if you look at Ohio State's roster, they're just going to trot out 2 guys who are better than everybody else every game, and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs.
Couldn't agree more on Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. All right, you guys covered just about every team, probably as much as I would say anything. I'll just say I've not been high on Alabama ever since the end of the season, but I think them bringing Ryan Grubb back means a lot to me, and I think it signifies that things are going to be similar to the way they were at Washington, so that's why I'm a little bit higher on Alabama than I was at the end of the season. Clemson I was not very high on, and then I did a little bit more research and saw their returning production number, went and looked back, and they have multiple first rounders on that team. Cade Klubnik, I think, as long as he is what everybody advertises him to be, they're a no doubt top 5 team to me. And then, I'm the different one. I got Ohio State number 1 because, look, Ohio State's biggest concern is depth on the defensive line and a new quarterback. I think if there's any team in the nation that's well suited to bring in a new quarterback, it's Ohio State, because you have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. In addition to them, you brought in the best tight end in the country in Max Clare. So as far as I'm concerned, they have a lot of really good weapons there, and it's going to support him well. And then I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of a hot take, but I think Ohio State's going to switch up their defense. I think they're going to play less defensive linemen to help with that depth. I would not be surprised at all to see 3 defensive linemen down. I know Larry Johnson, the rumors about him not wanting to see that at Ohio State. However, at the end of the day, I think Matt Patricia is somebody that is going to get his way. And I think Ryan Day learned last year, you don't let one staff member kind of dictate things. And so, I think they will do what's best for the team, especially if Ryan Day is not satisfied with the depth on the defensive line. So, all right, Let's go ahead and just get to some questions, guys, and then we'll get out of here. We'll kind of be quick with these because I do want to respect Juck's time and not take too long here. PSU Jim says the Big Ten sending 4 teams to the playoffs again. Well, right now, Zach and I have 5, but Indiana's right there on the edge, so a group of 5 team would probably make it in. Well, Zach has 6, right? Because you have Michigan in there.
Well, but there'd be a group of 5, so that would edge one of them out.
Yeah, so 5 for you, 4 for me, and Juck, what's that for you? 3? Yeah, you got 3. Juck,
Juck would have 4. Juck would have 4.
Oh yeah, sorry, Illinois. Juck, you think there's a way they can get 4? You feel confident in that, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel it's a layup. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I think so too. Zach, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think 4. I think honestly 4 should be the standard, regardless if they start doing auto bids or not.
Yeah,
I'm with Zach right there. Yeah.
Woody says if you had to pick one team in the top 10 you guys have ranked to possibly finish unranked like we see every year, who would it be? Woody's correct. That happens just about every year, if not every year. Top 10 team in the top 25 preseason normally finishes unranked. I'll go first. I could see it being Alabama if things just really don't go well with Kalen DeBoer and they lose to some teams they aren't supposed to lose to. Maybe, I mean, Philip won't like me saying it, but maybe things just don't go the right way for Illinois, and some of those close games last year turn into losses this year, and maybe they finish unranked. But I don't see either of those 2 happening. But those are probably the 2 off the top of my head. Zach, what do you think?
I was just trying to look up schedules. I do think Illinois, there is a drop off that you could see because they are, they do have a little bit of a tougher schedule than a year ago. But I don't see that happening. I do think I agree with you with Alabama too. If you look at their schedule, they got to play at Georgia. They play at South Carolina. They play LSU at home. They play Oklahoma, at Auburn. Like that's a tough schedule. Yeah, I think those 2 are right.
So
what do you think?
Totally with you with Illinois, just because we did see the team, I think, win 5 out of 6 score games, right? Like that's usually you see that kind of come back to the mean. But while they are kind of the obvious answer here, I think that LSU is just a program that we consistently see kind of shock us with a poor season that they lose a couple games that turns into a 4-loss season. And things just seem to get off the rails for them at times if they lose a couple. So I could see them potentially being one of those teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good pick too.
Yeah.
Phillips says, has a college quarterback ever had more pressure on them than Arch Manning? Juck, you think there's ever been a quarterback with more pressure than Arch Manning has?
That's really a great question. I'd have to put some thought into that, but I will say this. The dude deals with it in an amazing way. I think he's so mature. I think he's been raised so well. They've done everything right by him. By the way, I don't think there's any way he doesn't play his senior year at Texas. I think it's been the plan all along. I don't care if he's the number 1 pick. I think he's coming back for his senior year, just like his uncles did when they were both going to be top 5 picks. And they didn't have to forfeit, or they were forfeiting money. He's getting paid. So I think he's there for 2 years. And I think that the 26 Texas team, just like the 26 Ohio State team, both going to be a lot better than the 25 versions that are number 1 and number 2.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't think he's leaving either. Zach, what do you think?
The first name that popped up was Terrell Pryor in my mind.
Me too. That's the first thing I had.
Yeah.
Bryce Underwood has a lot of pressure too, but I wouldn't. It's not nearly on the national level as Arch Manning is getting and stuff. So, all right. Zach, did you have some starred things you wanted to get to?
I did. Well, so and I'll just say my guy Chris Ebersol is is in. There's a few. He says you all have Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Illinois from the Big Ten. Either within the Big Ten or not, who do you all see as being the most volatile team in your rankings heading into the season, and why?
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh man, so volatile from the I think, and I don't have them ranked, but I feel like I should have, but I do think Texas Tech is boom or bust. And I do think, and to Terry's chagrin, I do think Indiana, because how much of a year ago is real and how much of it is because of the weak schedule. And I hate saying that. I know I'm going to get some slack from Indiana fans, but like I do think they are a team that I think could be pretty volatile. And I think my concern especially is if they lose to Illinois, does that kind of cause a big slide? Similar to when they were ranked really high after the 2020 season. They had Michael Penix back, big game against Iowa. Penix just has a terrible game and then he gets injured and it's over. And it's like, what just happened? I don't think it'll happen under Cignetti's watch. I think Cignetti's a better coach than Tom Allen is by far. But I do think there is that type of boom or bust potential with Indiana.
Yeah, I think for me, I have to say Texas Tech, BYU, Washington. I actually put in there. I believe in Washington, but it wouldn't surprise me if they lose like 5 out of their 6 road games or something like that. Unfortunately, I'll say the other Big Ten teams in Michigan and USC as well, and Florida. They're probably my other volatile team. Jack, you have any?
So yeah, the ones on my list that pop out with that question are the SEC teams in the mid 13s to 20s with Florida, Oklahoma, and Auburn. Like those are, I could absolutely see those three losing 5 games each. Like one of, at least, I bet one of them will, to be honest. But yeah, those ones for me are like really boom or bust.
Probably Oklahoma. That schedule is just as bad, if not worse, than Wisconsin's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Those are good picks.
All right, you got one more, and then we'll get out of here, Zach.
Did I
I
put it?
I saw you had one more starred.
I think Terry had. Do you guys think it's a big deal that Indiana fought off USC? That's not top 25, but as we're talking about Indiana, I was curious. That'd be useful for us to talk about real quick.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal for Indiana's investment and what Kirk Cignetti is doing there, changing the culture with, actually get them to care about football more than, before. We always know Indiana cares about basketball, right? Indiana's always cared about basketball, but for them to put the money forward to keep their strength and conditioning coach around away from, a blue blood program like USC and Chad Bowden, a guy like Chad Bowden, it's absolutely huge for me. So I think it says a lot about Indiana, the program, more so their investment into the football program and what they want to do. Juck, you have any thoughts?
I think it's huge, and I've knocked Indiana a lot tonight. A lot of it, I'm just playing with the Indiana fans, but I think that this is an absolutely huge move, and it shows that they're not just satisfied with what they did last year, what they're going to do this year. They really are investing in this program, and they want to continue to be a player in the Big Ten and a player in college football, which, again, I love. I want everybody invested. I want the most fun conference we can have, and that only happens when we get more teams invested all the way. In Indiana, showing us they're all the way in.
Love it.
Yeah.
Zach, any final thoughts on that before we get out of here?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Sweet. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Juck, we appreciate your time spending with us.
Absolutely.
Went a little bit over an hour, but we appreciate you sticking around. Why don't you tell people where they can find your content one more time?
Yes, you can find me at Juck. That's Juck on Bucks, usually every morning at about 8 o'clock on the channel, talking some Buckeyes. Juck on CFB for the national college scene. We hit that pretty hard during the season, and appreciate you guys for having me on. As always, it's always a great time.
For sure. And Juck's covering the Brett Bielema stuff a little bit over there too. Don't let him fool you. It's not just during the season. He's got some Brett Bielema content up over there too, which has been fun to hear Juck rant and rave on. So Zach, any final thoughts or thoughts on Brett Bielema if you would like to share?
I love Brett. He's great.
Or not Brett Bielema. I apologize. Bill Belichick. I said Brett Bielema.
Oh, Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
No, we don't want my thoughts on Bill Belichick. At least not until I think about them and say a well-crafted thought about why I think what he's doing is terrible. Anyway,
that's the minister, man. Don't get him involved in this.
Thank you, Juck. I appreciate that.
Juck, then. We'll leave it to Juck.
But I will say Friday night is going to be a big night, because we are going to talk about whether Brett Bielema can be the Big Ten Huddle wrestling champion of 2025.
It's going to be a great one. It's going to be.
Is that a coach? That's an all Big Ten coaches match?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, we're hypothetical WWE style. Like, who would win?
Well, we got to go with Fickle.
Yeah, he's a favorite as well.
Yes.
He's up there.
Yeah.
The weight class is a big thing for Fickle. He's not as he's not in the same weight class as some other dudes.
But he's a wrestling champion. He never lost a match in all of high school. He's a legend.
Listen, we got Eric Boggs on the show, and he's like you. Every time we bring it up, he's like, "You guys do realize Luke Fickle, wrestling champion." So we'll have proper representation for Luke Fickle. Don't worry.
Yeah, this is gonna betray how much I know about WWE, but like Luke Fickle would be like the Kurt Angle of this bracket, which means he is a heavy favorite.
Dude, Bielema's got to do something with that belly, man. It's getting so big, bro. Like, honestly, a little bit of effort, man. Just a little bit.
I put the link for the wrestling rankings in the chat if anybody would like to go over there and rank them one more time. I'm gonna close it tomorrow. I'm gonna put out the rankings tomorrow so everybody sees the rankings, and then we'll close it and we'll have it ready for Friday. So this is your last chance to affect the rankings if you would like to do so. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you, Juck, for coming on once more, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.